Here we are. It's Palm Sunday, the beginning of the holiest week of the Christian year, and there are no palm branches. There are no crowds. There are no congregational songs of praise, no shouts of Hosanna by cute little kiddos in our sanctuary. I'm sitting here in my backyard, grateful for a little bit of sunshine, with my dog who keeps wandering about, making sure the backyard's safe from squirrels and the neighborhood cats. And I'm pretending that it's normal to be preaching to my webcam with the wind blowing. But it's not. You're watching me on your computer or your smart TV or your tablet or your phone. Maybe you're with a loved one, or perhaps like me, you're by yourself. But nothing about this is normal. There are no guidebooks to get us through. We're all just improvising as best we know how. Many of us are forging new ways of being connected while staying physically apart from one another. Some of you have been joining me in the morning for prayers on Facebook Live, which are then posted on this website and then on our YouTube channel, which is also new for us. Others have ventured into Zoom calls for the first time as we've been gathering for evening prayers online, connecting with our region, or hosting a virtual happy hour, or even having an elders meeting. George, who always has a joke to share with folks on Sunday morning, is now texting his weekly jokes to me, bringing a little bit of laughter on my Sundays. This is not normal. And yet, it's still Palm Sunday, whether we're together physically or not. Often I think our public celebrations of Palm Sunday feel forced anyway. We thrust palm branches into the hands of children or even reluctant adults and encourage them to wave them about. We push people to enact an excitement or a joy that they may not feel. Palm Sunday is always a day of highs and lows, of the ecstatic crowd shouting, "Hosanna now to David's son, God's blessing on the coming one." And yet in the distance we know the echoes of "Crucify him" will soon overtake the crowds. Because on Palm Sunday, circumstances change. Excitement, hopes, and dreams will all fall to the ground to be trampled upon by harsh realities. Most often we choose to continue the story of Palm Sunday and weave it into the story of Jesus' death. So we celebrate Palm Sunday and Passion Sunday together as one large pageant or drama. In our worship at First Christian Puyallup, we embrace that drama with extended readers' theater, with songs and prayer stations. The story of Jesus' entry in Jerusalem, which culminates in his execution, needs very little homiletical embellishment by me, because it's a story of tragedy and violence, of human fears and failings, of isolation and despair. It's a liturgy that ends at the cross, in the silence, in the darkness of the moment. It ends without closing, without benediction. This year there's no palm branches, there's no readers' theater, there's no heart-rending renditions of "Were you there when they crucified my Lord?" Many of us are isolated. We are closed up behind our doors. We are waiting for the word that it's safe to go out. So how do we celebrate Palm Sunday in the strange moment we're living in? First off, it's okay if you're watching in your pajamas on Monday afternoon because you took a walk on Sunday morning, or you read the paper, or maybe you ventured out to the grocery store because you were out of coffee, or you just forgot it was Sunday. Or maybe you binge watched Picard on CBS. Well, maybe not that last one. We're still figuring this out, living through this amazingly anxious time that we're in. And the end date keeps shifting on us, and that uncertainty of when it will end is contributing to all the difficulties that we're having. And now some of you have been personally affected by the coronavirus, with loved ones who've tested positive, with someone who's sick, or with a loved one who's in the hospital for another illness, but you're still separated from them, unable to visit, to comfort them. This is all emotionally taxing and it's draining. So give yourself time for your mind, for your body and your heart to settle into this stressful moment. And then set aside all the shoulds that come to your mind right now. I should be getting more done. I should be more productive or useful. I should be improving myself. Just stop that. All those shoulds are not helpful right now. I invite you to take this week as a gift. And let's walk slowly through Holy Week together, one day at a time. This Holy Week will be unlike any we've lived through before. We will have moments of hope. There will be times of tragedy and despair. There will be grief and anger and sadness for what will not be this year. This will not be the year of the big productions, of the live sacred music we dearly love to sing and to hear. This will not be the year of the big celebrations. We will not wait in line to flower the Easter cross this year. This will not be the year of large extended family gatherings with generations of loved ones together under one roof. So instead, let's embrace the small things this Holy Week, beginning today, with or without palm branches. In our reading today, the psalmist sings, "This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it." No, God did not cause this crisis, nor is this pandemic some sort of divine judgment on people. If there's anything the story of the crucifixion reveals to us, it is that God's heart breaks with ours in times of tragedy. Even in the valleys of death's shadow, we can find moments of hope when the creative forces of God's love breaks through and we find ourselves surprised by joy. So will you join me this week? Keep an eye out. Keep an eye open for the small graces which greet us in the midst of this moment. Perhaps it'll be in the kindness of a stranger, or in the catching melodies of a songbird outside your window, or in a story on the news of goodwill. I listened to the governor of New York on Saturday speak of his surprise and thankfulness for the state of Oregon and its governor, for they are sending 140 ventilators on loan to New York. He called it astonishing and unexpected. He said it was a kind gesture. We're all in this same battle here, stopping the spread of the virus. Where do you hear stories of hope? How are you being met with grace in these days? Let's walk this Holy Week with intention. The psalmist goes on to say, "This is the gate of the Lord, the righteous shall enter through it." For the psalmist, the city is open to those who would enter its gates. And there will be a moment when we will go back into our cities, when the gates will be open again, and we will restart the public life we share. When that day comes, there will be an overwhelming push to return to normal, to put back the pieces of our world as we remember them, to have the familiar return. That, I think, will be a fool's errand, because we will not be the same as we were. This moment will have changed us, all of us. We will see things differently than we did before. What we took for granted, what we valued highly, what we discounted, those categories will have shifted for us. What we deemed throwaways, we will have learned the hard way are actually essential. And what we thought we couldn't live without was indeed nothing more than a luxury after all. Palm Sunday can help us begin to sort these things out. Jesus enters the city to the adulation of the crowds. Hosanna now to David's son, they cry. God's blessing on the coming one, the one who comes in the Lord's own name. Hosanna in the highest. The crowds are cheering, but they're cheering for the myth of a conquering hero, of a swashbuckling, handsome man striding into town, taking no prisoners, vanquishing the enemies, the doubters, the online trolls. They want the show with all the trappings of power. Someone who will resurrect their beloved national story, who will restore their memories of glory and honor from days long gone. They want to win again. They shout Hosanna because they hope he will rescue them from Roman occupation. Jesus disappoints them. He's no military hero. He's not gathering up an army. He's not polishing up his sword. He's not stoking hatred and division. And he's not interested in labels and protected groups. He is not a hero. No, Jesus is arrested in the middle of the night. He's dragged before the authorities. Jesus is sentenced to death. He's hoisted up onto a cross to die the death of a traitor. Palm Sunday is when the shortcomings of our own visions of how the world should be are revealed for what they are. Palm Sunday isn't about gathering together and marching around waving our palm branches or shouting Hosanna. Palm Sunday is about laying our hopes and dreams for this world and then lining them up against Jesus' proclamation of the realm of God and what that realm looks like. Palm Sunday in the midst of a pandemic is no different. The moral deficiencies of our American myths of self-sufficiency are being laid bare today. You can't pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. And you never could. Someone else made those boots, probably in a country far from our own. We may be self-isolating right now, but our world is more connected than ever. What happens in Spain affects those in Great Britain. What we do in Washington State affects those living in Indiana. What happens in Seattle affects Clarkston. Borders and state lines don't matter when it comes to pandemics. In this crisis, we see how fragile our communities really are. We see the disparities in healthcare, the inequalities in our employment statuses. We see how the well-being of our small businesses are tied to the well-being of our whole communities. Millions have lost their jobs, their livelihoods, and it's going to get worse. Others are more fortunate and they've adjusted by working at home. But all of us are relying on grocery clerks and warehouse stock workers and delivery drivers and health professionals. How we choose to rebuild our community connections after the worst of this crisis is past, that is up to us. Will we extend and expand a safety net of income to those who have become unemployed? How will we assist all of those young adults whose schooling and futures are now much more precarious? Will we address the immoral lack of health care for the poor in our communities? When the lifting of the stay-at-home ban comes, we will no doubt want to shout hosannas from the rooftops. But until then, let us all work for a world in which all of God's children are valued, where peacemakers are celebrated, where the hungry are fed, where the once unsheltered live in safety and security, where creation is guarded, and where the shalom of God reigns for all.